welcome to the Investing Success Show. I'm Brian Patton, along with my co-host Adam Whitmire.
Glad to be here.
We are in for a special treat today, Adam.
We are. Why is that?
Because we have Ray Appen and Hans Appen of Appen
I
Media
recognize
Group.
that last name. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that makes more sense.
They're only our benefactors. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks
You
for
got
So
it.
should we ask different?
Thank you.
Should we be nice, or should we?
We
just
should be
as-
nicer
as
to these
hard on them
folks
as
because
we
they
are
could kick us
everybody?
off the air.
Okay.
So I've known Ray for what's up with the way you're wearing your headphones? Are you good?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
No, we're good.
I just wondered.
No,
This
we're
is a
good.
special way.
No, it's like reversing my hat.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Well, I do that
Except
when I'm
it's
in the
headphones.
orchestra. I
It's
like
the
leave
cool
one off the
thing.
ear so I can hear myself play trumpet. But anyway, I've known Ray for
You play trumpet?
I do. Been playing for 20 something
No idea.
years. Yeah. Matter of fact, the last guest on here plays cello with me in the orchestra.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you
So-
know that?
I did know that.
I'm a trumpeter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he
Uh,
is.
Anyway, I've known Ray for
Long
25 years, maybe. It's a long time.
Man, you've known everybody. How old are you? Everybody for a lot of everybody that comes on the show.
Well, see, I've known Ray since I was 27.
6, 7. Okay.
So that's been
Yeah,
20,
you had
24
just resigned from left the working for the city, and you had just
Mhm.
started your.
Well, I knew you when I was at the city of Alpharetta. So anyway, it's been some time ago.
Long time ago.
I'm
either way.
not that old.
Okay,
Give me
sure.
a
You're
break.
not.
You've told me the story before about starting Appen newspapers or buying it or whatever you did. So tell us what. I'd love to hear that story again. It's been several years since I've heard you tell that.
It's really more happenstance than anything.
Mhm.
My wife and I had been working at the Miami Herald she'd been there almost 10 years. And I took a big job at the time in St. Louis. Right before I went to St. Louis to the suburban journals, and about 6 months later, the market crashed in the suburban journals, and the St. Louis Sun went off the deep end. So we just decided, we need to get out of corporate and we need to try to find something we can buy on our own. Contacted a newspaper broker, and the only real parameters we had were that we wanted to be in the South near a metropolitan area. And this is what we found, and
Wow.
something that we could afford to buy. So
And when was that? The 80s?
that was 90.
90.
So
You couldn't have picked a better market.
it was
Wow.
a
Yeah,
great market.
Yeah. Excellent.
We've seen a lot of, cycles,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't imagine that there are many better markets in this country than where we are right now.
It's amazing. That's an investing success story right
Yes,
there.
it is. It is.
And then along in the 90s came this wee little fella, probably. When you were born?
88.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. You're in the 80s.
Yeah.
Almost.
Oh, yeah.
How old are you now? 30?
Yeah.
31?
Yeah. 30.
probably just turned
Okay.
30.
Yeah.
This is Hans, the son. So it's father-son duo here.
Uh huh. As of the last 8,
10?
9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been working here that long?
Mm-hmm. So I started the
You're
summer
young.
in between my junior and senior year at UGA,
Mm-hmm.
and I commuted in between Athens and Alpharetta for a full year.
And you have a journalism major?
I have an economics major.
Oh, really?
Even better.
Yeah.
It looks like you'd understand more about economics then.
Even better.
I'm just kidding. I'm sure you're very smart. Even though we go at it on Facebook. So you are the general manager. Is that your title?
Yes.
So
I
what
guess.
what is it? What is it like working together as a father-son duo? Y'all argue any?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Argued this morning.
Who won?
TBD.
We conflict at times, and times we don't, and you just got to keep going forward. And you don't have time to waste a whole lot of time worrying about if you think the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Who has veto power?
my mother.
That's a good call. Smart.
The wife.
She's a peacemaker, huh? In some ways.
Yeah.
So what are some of the benefits and that you feel like working together with family?
Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Never have to second guess.
Because if he
Anything that's
steals from
related to
you, he's
trust.
stealing from himself. So
Yeah.
That's
No.
right.
It's huge. It's my my youngest son, Carl, is probably going to come and work for us. He's graduating soon. So there'll be 3 of us. So
Wow.
probably starting in August.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be an interesting dynamic.
And you have a daughter as well.
She's not leaving California
Mhm.
anytime soon, I don't think. So
Now, from the paper standpoint, you guys just purchased Dunwoody Crier, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Was that
Yeah.
a good thing? To be determined
So
yet?
far, so good.
Okay.
Yeah, we they were in our relatively small staff. It was Dick Williams has owned it since 1996, and has recently had a pretty short staff, and we brought the remaining 2 folks on board with us and our full time here at Appen Media. So the transition has been pretty smooth. But with anything new like that, we're still feeling each other out and figuring out the market and where there's opportunities for us to build on what is existing and where we need to come in and do some new things.
So I want to talk about some of the podcast platform you've got. I know you've recently gone out to a podcast seminar and was able to speak. I assume the old guy here, Mr. Ray, did you have to drag him to the podcasting, or was he into it at first?
The first step was explaining what a podcast is.
Yeah, step 1, basics 101. Okay, this is great.
But I would say that you've come to kind of appreciate the new media that is podcasting and the potential that it has.
I've lived long enough to see that the change is constant,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the media, and there's no bad media change. There's change, and some of it works, some of it sticks, some of it doesn't, and it's constant in our business. And the only mistake you can make is not trying to adapt, not trying to do new things.
Now, you've got how many podcasts now?
I'm gonna defer to Daniel on that one because we just launched 3 last night. So
Oh, wow.
17, 16, 17.
And we're close to the top, right? Our show.
You are.
Just tell us that.
Yeah,
anyway.
you are.
Tell all the girls that probably.
You're not
Right.
quite at my show yet, but
Okay.
That's
Well,
right.
I think we were the second show behind your show, right?
third.
Third show.
Lunch
Yeah,
break
we're
was the
third.
second one.
Oh, okay.
So you were the third one.
Yeah, I remember we had a lunch thing one time, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about having a real estate show?
Yeah.
Investing show." So started from that,
That's right.
and now we got
That's all it
millions.
takes.
Now we have millions of listeners.
So do you?
A little hyperbole.
So a lot of
I want
the
to tell
a
people
lot of the
that.
media though is online now, right? And so again, you still have a paper printed, but you also are online, and you have the podcast, and you mentioned how some of that is changing. And
Do you have your web stats
Yeah.
off the top of the head?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. What we'll
Mhm.
quote to an advertiser, though, is that we average 80,000 unique visitors to our website every month.
Wow,
And
That's pretty good. That's
between-
a
that
lot.
is good.
Yeah,
It's-
that's really
it's-
good.
Now, unique visitor is somebody that's
Going
never
for the
been on there
first time.
before.
Somebody who comes that month, but we don't count them again if they come back that month.
Oh, okay.
So it's 80,000 for the entire
New
month.
hits that month could be more than that.
Individual people, 80,000 individual
Wow,
people.
that's
Yeah,
pretty
so you
strong.
might have 80,000 uniques and 300,000 page views
Right.
Mhm.
from those 80,000 uniques.
Well, of those different types of media, what do you feel like is kind of the core part of your business now versus do you see that changing in the future?
The core of our business is still print media. I don't see that changing in the immediate future. I could see us diversifying and having a good media mix. I've actually had this conversation twice now this week, where what I tell folks is that we continue to morph into an ad agency that publishes its own newspapers and magazines. Because you touched on the podcast and our online websites, but we do so much more than that. I mean, it's graphic design, it's email marketing, we do video marketing, we're very active in social media. I mean, if there's something that's advertising related, we're probably involved in it in some way, shape, or form. Now, the split of where our revenue comes from is still very much so weighted towards the print side of things, but that's going to change, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say we're looking for a sponsor for this podcast right here. So
Yeah.
if you're listening
Great.
to this, want to sponsor the pod, give
Especially
us a call.
I think a
Spon-
bank would be a good
A bank
sponsor
would be
for
Oh,
us.
a bank would be an excellent
Lenders,
sponsor.
a lot of
Mhm.
real estate service providers out there.
Mhm.
Lots of them talking about commercial real estate.
Tell us about that conference you went to and spoke at.
Yeah, it's the so we're members of a few different trade organizations. This one is one of the larger ones. It's called Inland Press. I believe it's around 160, 170 years old. And at all these trade conferences, as with any industry, they're looking at new developments in the industry and trends and trying to help each other out. And podcasting is a very hot topic in the newspaper world. My claim to fame is that here at Appen Media Group and the Appen Podcast Network is we actually had a daily podcast before the Washington Post had a daily podcast.
Really? Appen Podcast
And
Network.
mugs.
That's your logo.
Awesome.
You can get this for $5.99 on your website.
I'll cut you a deal.
That's right.
But
Yeah, we were actually the second newspaper company in Georgia online.
Really?
The
So you've
AJC
kind of been ahead of the
AJC
curve a
didn't
little
beat
bit.
us by much.
Is your main website northfulton.com or is there a
It
different
is.
one now?
It is.
Northfulton.com.
So yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. We have, in a lot of ways, we've missed some trends for sure, but we've gotten in front of a lot of the changes in the industry, and so far podcasting seems to be one of them. I have been doing some free consulting for newspapers across the country that are also members of these trade organizations, and somebody let Inland Press know that I was doing that, and they asked me to speak and kind of explained where we are as a podcast network right now, what difficulties we've had in developing shows in the network, and just answered a lot of questions, and it was fun. I got invited to a newspaper in Iowa this February to interview all the presidential candidates. So
Wow.
as a result of that
Woo-woo.
meeting, so I'm really excited.
Wow, no kidding.
That'll
That's
be
excellent.
neat.
Yeah.
Who's invited you?
I've got his card. I don't remember.
Okay.
off the top of my head.
I think our show needs to sponsor
Well,
that.
if you think about podcasting impacts a lot of industries, think about how it impacts the real estate industry that we're in. I've got one of my clients that really all of her business, she has a very large following of about 40,000 investors, and she has a syndication platform where she syndicates real estate projects, big, commercial, residential development projects are syndicated because of her podcast. And she was one of the early adopters of a podcast and has a wildly successful podcast and just a huge following and uses that to syndicate real estate. So a lot of real estate gets developed because of podcasting.
And
That's
I use this
fascinating.
for marketing myself. I was down a restaurant here around Haynesbridge Road, met a fella, got talking to him, and he come to find out he owned a movie studio in Atlanta. And I said, "Oh, so you must be doing the movie tax credits." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Oh, I did a podcast on that. Let me send it to
Send
you."
you a link.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I sent him a link to my podcast, and he listened to it, and he liked it. So I don't know if that'll turn into a client, but it sort of said, "Hey, this guy knows what he's talking about."
Yeah,
'cause he knows
credibility.
something. Yeah, builds credibility. So we've used it a lot like that.
And so, Ray, I wanted to ask you a question just to kind of transition just a little bit. One of the things that we talk about on our show is investing in the next generation. So one of the ways that we invest in the next generation is to tell them that, hey, what worked and what didn't work for us. And so what I was going to ask is, if you can think about in your life up until now, what were one of the things that you feel like that has made you really successful?
That's a hard question. I like what I do. I think Steve Jobs in his some speech that I listened that Jobs made, he said, you have to love what you do what you love. And when it's like that, it's not work. I don't recall ever watching the clock to see, how many more hours do I have to work. If I ever watch the clock, it's, oh, gee, I want to do these 8 more things before I leave, but it's 1 a.m. and I have to go home.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think that's a lot of it is I just like what I do. In our business, whether you're on the news side or the advertising side, you get either a small snapshot of many businesses and many people, and what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, who they are, whether you're on the news side or the advertising side, really no 2 days are the same. It's like going to the movies every day almost, because it's just you just meet neat people, you get exposed to neat ideas and neat concepts, and Lord knows that this industry that we're in changes so often that you just can't. It's stimulating.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
I
Yeah.
will
It is.
I will tell you, he's too humble to say this, but he's probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He really is. He makes working with him easy, and I think that's been a big part of his success.
Well, that's a credo on our sales team as well. Our sales reps, I mean, their job is to work with customers to help them build their business.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've heard it from Ray once, I've heard it 100 times. If you're not easy to work with, there's a dozen other people out there who think they can do your job better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things I would say.
Now are you a millennial? You considered
Yes.
a millennial?
Yes.
Yes.
What,
Yeah.
I'm a
What's-
mid-aged millennial.
What's your view of the work ethic of millennials?
It's a good question.
Because you probably hire some also.
Yes. And we've had some successes and we've had
Mhm.
some failures there. It depends what they're doing. You and I have talked a little bit about this, where I think the end game is different for younger folks who are entering the workforce. And I think, to put a pin on it, I think it's they're far more concerned with doing something they're passionate about than making a lot of money. And I think, the idea that they're not also concerned about making a lot of money is ludicrous. Of course they are, but they'd be much happier taking a $50,000 job where they get to do something they love than $75,000 job where it's a grind every day and they hate to go to work every morning. So I guess it's a roundabout way of answering your question. Maybe the difference between maybe my dad's generation and the millennial generation is they see the value of getting to work and cashing that check so they can pay the bills and support their family no matter what. And I think to a certain degree, there's a breaking point that comes a lot sooner with millennials than it would have from previous generations.
Yeah, I think maybe that we part of that formula is that we've enabled our generation, my generation, a little bit at least.
Interesting. The last
We've-
guest
we've-
said the same, or a couple of guests
Yep.
ago said the same
You
thing.
know, we've enabled them. I mean, my kids have great work ethic. However, I don't think any of my Hans, Amelia, or Carl had summer jobs. And it wasn't because they didn't want them. It's because they were doing travel soccer or swimming, and no matter how concerned I was about, helping them get a summer job or experiencing what that is to like, that none of them ever had summer jobs, which is one of your questions, Brian, is where did you fail? And that's one of them is I wasn't really able to help facilitate my kids working, and they all worked, but it was compared to me, I was washing dishes or roofing or doing construction stuff, from the time I was 16.
Does that create a different work ethic in them than in you?
It's just a different frame of reference. And, your frame of reference really colors what you see. And it might be a different work ethic, but it might not be maybe it's not a better or worse. Let's just, I think
It's just different.
Calling it different would probably be more accurate.
And we were very involved in the church growing up and still are. So I think to a certain degree where there may have been, lapses in not having, a summer job or whatever it may have been, we made up for in
mission trips.
mission trips and, a work ethic that, is in large part based on scripture, making money to take care of other people, take care of your family. You're the head of your house. You got to be responsible for your wife and your family. So I think there's certainly an element there that it probably would not have worked for everyone, but because especially my mom has been so active in our church and dad too, and just made sure we go to youth group and mission trips and be involved and be leaders in the church too. My wife's a deacon. She was baptized at our church a couple years ago and is now a deacon, and fully intend on our kids doing the same thing.
I think the mission trips are important.
Huge.
Just as it's so easy in this area to they call it affluenza. You're affluent flu, right? It's so easy just to not really understand how the rest of the world lives until you go on the. I'm not sure the mission trips do that much for the people you're missioning to as they do for you.
Yeah.
And especially as a young person.
But it gives them like a different perspective on how people in the world live and what they're able to have and be happy and experience.
Right.
Yeah. So those are great experiences serving others. That's what it's all about.
Well, and I think part of it too is I personally feel very aware of that too. That I've never wanted for anything. Mom and dad have always been there, take care of us, and we've been blessed to have a good job here. My wife works at Racetrack downtown, but I do think it's important to have some perspective on that. And I do think this market is such a bubble. I was reading a Georgia Trend article last night about the only physician in a small rural county in South Georgia, population 3,000. And they don't have a pharmacy. You have to drive 30 miles to pick a prescription. Most people can't afford a $10 copay to go just see your internist. And the closest hospital is 18 miles away. We've got 3 hospitals within 10 miles
by
of
bubble,
this.
you mean we're just
We're
insulated from the real world.
Yeah.
We are.
I mean,
And
Well, I think the average household income around here is what, 150,000 or something a year.
I tell my staff, I tell my kids all the time, don't assume the rest of the world is like North Fulton, because it's not. You leave this and you drive anywhere and you start seeing real used cars and people. We're very, very, very lucky, very fortunate, because there's a lot of money here.
Yeah.
Very blessed. No, that's interesting. That's a great experience. And I'm assuming, Hans, I guess, did you plan on working together with your father growing up, or is it just something that happened?
It kind of happened. So the summer in between your junior and senior year of college is when everybody's looking for internships. That one big internship that lands you your first job out of college. And this was summer 2010. So we were just inching our way out of the recession. And I just remember that when I had a discussion with my mom and dad about what I should do that summer in between my junior and senior year, my mom put it out there that, just so you know, we really could use your help.
She was calculating back then. She knew she'd rope you in for this long term.
But it was one of the things I saw as a great opportunity to get an introduction to the family business. I fully intended on going back to school, graduating, and then finding a job, with the idea that coming back to the family business could be an option at some point. But I got here and interned in the sales room under the sales manager. Thought I would be terrible at it and was terrified about doing it, and really just was thrown to the wolves. Started going door to door, picking up the phone, calling people, scheduling meetings, and absolutely loved it. And by the time the summer ended, I had developed a decent little book of business. And I remember talking to Ray about, which of our sales reps on staff would be best suited to take over those accounts so I could go back to school. I said, no, I don't think so.
So
And I was fortunate in that I had taken a lot of AP classes in high school and had been planning on double majoring at Florida State before I transferred to Georgia. So I had a bunch of credits and I took 2 classes each semester my senior year. So I was able to do those classes Tuesday, Thursday, and then commute in between Athens and Alpharetta and just keep working. And then by the time I graduated, just kept on working.
So
Haven't looked back since.
And Hans is really a fabulous salesperson, and I think most of it is just sales. People need to trust you. You have to have your product knowledge and insight, but really what it boils down to, I think, is trust. And our sort of our mantra is that I tell the sales staff this, if you can get some marketing done for a client for $100, don't even think about charging them $101. Our rule of thumb is we always we have to do without fail what's best for the client. And doing just a little bit extra for ourselves, it can't be that way.
Well, and it's
and people can sense it, and most of our advertisers, I want to say, is they trust us. They know we're going to be honest with them, and we're going to look out for their best interest first. And that's just kind of how that's kind of how I navigate life in general, and my kids too, probably. And it's just do the right thing.
Well, it's the same with what you guys do too. I mean, if you have a bad relationship with a client and it ends poorly, word gets out.
That's right.
If you don't know what you're doing, word gets out. So I mean, trust is critical. But we have the added benefit of knowing that we work for people. So we have confidence in what we're selling and really do approach it as a partnership rather than a client agent type of relationship.
Well, this has been a real treat for us. We appreciate y'all being on the show. It's to hear the father and son dynamic. It's really cool. I'm glad you guys are working together and enjoy it as much as you can, because it's rare that it doesn't happen a lot. So
yeah, it's life's short. So
yeah.
I mean, we enjoy working with each other.
We stay out of each other's hair as much as possible, and it works, because I've heard plenty of stories of father-son family relationships in business where it absolutely does not work. Mm-hmm. And it's detrimental to family relations. And my mother, so my mom really took a step back in February, March of this year, and is really focusing on church and grandkids and everything. But prior to that, she and I always had an unspoken rule that once 5:30 hit, I could not talk to her about work anymore, which we always respected. We Ray and I bent those rules a little bit.
I'll still get a text or a call at 3 a.m. from Hans. Hey, have you thought about this? And it goes both ways. I've probably reached out to him in the middle of the night far more times than I should have. But it's just when you're passionate about something and you get inspired, or you see something. Lord knows, I see something every day, and I have to use some discipline not to try to take it and run with it. It's just,
well, you have to act on the inspiration as you get it.
Yeah.
So
when I think that is, I mean, who better to share in the victories and the spoils of success in business than your family.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it extra special to have that family actually here in the building.
That's a good note to end on. We appreciate you guys joining us today. This has been the Investing Success Show with Brian Patton and my co-host Adam Whitmire. We'll see you next time.
thank you. You guys did a great job.
Yeah.